Now that you've signed up for a course, I want to just go over a few particulars of what you will be learning in this course. The first thing I want to just put out front in this opening lecture is there is no injury that you receive that is too small to file to receive VA benefits from. Let me give you an example. An example is, and it's not well known, disfigurement doesn't only mean loss of limb as it concerns the Veteran Administration applying for benefits. You could have received a scar, you could have received a cut, you received a sore, even severe sunburn that might have scarred your body years after, and those scars are remaining years after your service. You can apply for disability for that disfigurement, and that doesn't include the larger injuries. The first thing with the fully developed claim process is that you need to gather as much information to substantiate any claim you have. The difference between the fully developed claim process and the standard claim process is the fully developed claim process is a software, it's online, it's instant. Everything you need or all evidence that you want to submit in addition to your personal information must be submitted online, uploaded as a PDF document. Next, I want to encourage you this, and you're going to hear me say this several times throughout this video tutorial series, maybe more than several times, because it is that important. The VA does offer a service which allows them to retrieve your personal medical records. The issue is that can literally, not only by my testimony, but by the testimony of many other veterans, that could literally add 4, 5, or maybe even more months or years to your claim. You can get your medical records from private providers in probably 10 business days or less. You can more easily access those private medical records than can the VA, even if you sign a waiver that allows them to do that. So you get the private medical records. Now, next is your federal or your service medical records. The VA can get those records more easily than you can, and I'm telling you because I over and over applied over a 3-year, 4-year period, even got an organization involved and still couldn't get my medical records. Now, that's not always the case. There is a form you can go on the VA's website to request those. However, I would not, my professional advice is I would not delay filing some sort of claim until you wait on those medical records, because truthfully it could take a year or more. And right now it said that getting your medical service records, you're supposed to get them in 6 months. Folks, that is not the reality. Even the local VA representatives in many counties, wherever you are, will tell you those things are very difficult to get a hold of, especially if you didn't walk away with them. However, with that said, the VA, I have found them mostly fair with their claims once they get your federal medical records. So if you in a perfect world, you'll have your medical records in order to file your claim, your federal medical records and your private medical records. But get your private medical records, and I would not allow the VA, I would not allow them, I guess that's not the right word, I wouldn't turn that responsibility over to the VA because you can get those records quick. The next thing is, for those of you who are currently in the military, now you can't file a fully developed claim on the VA website any sooner than 180 days from your separation date. What I want to tell you, if you are in the military, is get copies of your medical records now, not just your separation physical, which is going to come up maybe 30 or 60 days, probably 30 days, maybe before you separate. You need to get a copy of your medical records now so you are prepared on the 180th or maybe the 179th day till you separate to get to file your fully developed claim. Now, for those who separated from the military, one piece of evidence that it proved for me anyway to be really strong is I didn't get necessarily a copy of my entire medical record when I separated so many years ago, but I did get my separation physical. and it listed several, 3 or 4 issues, which now I am claiming. So if you can find your separation physical, all the more reason for certainly you to get it. The next thing I want to go over is that you make the decision whether you want to actually file a fully developed claim or a standard claim. This is the beauty. Even if you don't have all of the documentation you need to file a fully developed claim and you actually go through the process, the VA will automatically take your claim from fully developed to standard claim if you can't provide them the information. So I want to be clear about that, is you don't lose any rights if you go through the fully developed claim process and that it doesn't work out because of lack of documentation. You want to have all the documentation, but you won't lose any rights. They'll just switch it to standard. The next thing that you are going to learn in this course is the need for accuracy when describing your injuries. Now, a lot of people, even VA, county VA representatives, will encourage you to file as many injuries as possible. Well, the issues are many. I'm going to give you 3. The first is that it will, if you have proof of some injuries, whether it's 3 injuries, 4 injuries, 5 injuries, or even 1, file for that injury. File only for the injuries that you can actually support with documentation first. And this is the beauty. Once your claim is adjudicated and found in favor of you, and if you have the proper documentation, it will, you can always open a new claim to test some new injuries. To see if you can get rated for that. Because the worst case scenario from a benefit standpoint is being denied, but and another one that actually is put forth as positive, but it's really not from a financial perspective, is getting a 0% rating. Now with the 0% ratings, you can, even if you rate 0% and you find other evidence later after your claim is adjudicated, you can actually use the fully developed claim processing system to get a reconsideration on that injury if more evidence pops up. So just with the fully developed claim process, I would only file for those injuries that you can actually support. Now, as with any rule, there's always an exception. Now, that exception, my experience, and also the testimony of other veterans, is post-traumatic stress disorder. That could mean a lot of things. And even if you may not have proof, one of the positive things that the VA does is a lot of times with post-traumatic stress disorder, if you can give what they call the stressor, they will probably find in favor. And I'm not saying it's going to be 100% rating, 10, 20, 30, whatever that is. But what I am saying is if that is something that even if you may not have proof of it, I would go ahead and put on the fully developed claim process because stressors is, if you can tie it to a service connection and they can prove, or you can prove that you were there, when that's at the location where the stressors happen, they will probably find in your favor. Now, with that said, let me give you an example of what that might be. That might be your unit was assigned, and I'll use myself. My unit was assigned to Somalia after actually went there twice. In the early 1990s, a movie came out about what happened there called Black Hawk Down. We all, most who are old enough remember that movie. Nevertheless, we were there shortly after that to give a show of strength, and a lot of things happened over there. So if you were over there and this is just an example, and you heard gunshots all night and it started to mess with your sleep and you're even suffering from that today, you can claim that and the VA will confirm that your unit was there. So post-traumatic stress disorders, that is something certainly especially for those of you who are anywhere near a combat zone, I would definitely put that down and kind of see what happens. But you're going to have to describe what happened, kind of, and where you were. The next thing, and I'll kind of close with this, is accuracy of your information is imperative. Even the smallest error in reporting information for a fully developed claim can get it dropped to a standard claim, which is going to take longer. You need to double and triple check the information that you are submitting. This is not an email where you can put it together quickly and submit it and hope the best happens. This is not some online information quiz or some survey that you're filling out that you could just whiz through. You're going to spend a few hours putting together your claim electronically, many more days and weeks gathering the evidence. So you want to set aside a couple of hours once you get to the end of the fully developed claim process to make sure every jot and every tittle is present, and certainly every piece of evidence that you need is there. Again, thank you so much for your service. And I am not someone who doesn't understand where you are. I assure you, I understand exactly where you are. I may not understand your individual situation, but I understand the anxiety that you may feel. I understand, especially for those who've been rejected by the VA before. I understand the rejection. My first claim was rejected in 2008, and it took a year for them, and they basically called me a liar. Which was really interesting, and the evidence is there. So I understand where you're at, but I want you to take a breather. I want you to take this course. I want you to gather evidence. And most of all, I want you to gain confidence to understand that the information you gather is power, and at least get the process started.